On a very busy day for Auburn already, we've got some more breaking news. Another hit in the transfer portal for Auburn basketball. Point guard Aden Holloway has reportedly entered that portal and will be taking his talents elsewhere. What does this mean for Auburn, Bruce Pearl, and the program? We're going to talk about all that here. The fallout of that is going to be discussed. Let's get into it right now. War Eagle Auburn family and a special War Eagle, and welcome to those of you that consider yourselves part of the E2C network family. We appreciate you being here, however you got here, whenever you got here, live, replay, whatever platform. We appreciate you being part of our little family within the Auburn family. For today's live stream, or at least one of many today, apparently, that we're going to be doing, breaking news, Aden Holloway is entering the transfer portal. The purpose of that is a reaction stream discussing primarily this and the implications of that may or may not be there, what it could mean for the program in terms of subtractions and additions. Are there greater implications? What does it mean in terms of, is this team going to improve in terms of guard play? What's Aden's future? And we're also going to look at what we're losing in Aden Holloway and talk about some of his stats in a very short amount of time. It'll be a little bit different than talking about KD and Trey because they had 2 years to analyze. We only have 1 year with Aden to discuss here. But that's what's on tap for you in this stream. We're going to keep it mainly focused on that. I will tell you it's a very busy day today. So if you are here wondering thoughts about the uniforms, the apparel deal with Nike, we have already done one live stream about that. Go check that out. We're not done discussing that. We'll talk about that at the end of the show when you can get some more content about that. And obviously, news abounds in terms of rumors and stuff that we may or may not address here. It's mainly going to be focused on Aden and the fallout of that. So, would love to know that you're here. Go ahead and check in with us. Smash the like button if you can. It's a huge help. I know I ask that all the time, and a lot of you are tired of me asking it, but I cannot stress that enough. That is the simplest and easiest thing that you can do to help support our content here is by smashing the like button if you feel like we have earned it. And let us know that you're here. I see some familiar faces already, and would love to hear some of your reactions, commentary specifically about Aden. As you guys are thinking about it, putting some topics in there, let me start with my initial thoughts about the Aden Holloway departure and situation. It's interesting little trajectory if you look at the timeline of events. In today's day and age, cue the boo birds about the transfer portal, NIL. Oh, it's never going to be the same. Folks, it's here. Deal with it. I'm sorry. But when a season ends, basically the transfer portal opens wide up. And that means that people are going to leave. People are going to come in. And the second you hate the transfer portal, the next second you're going to love it because something else comes in. So that's obviously opened up Auburn to the potential of seeking changes at the guard position. Yet again, it feels like first was Katie Johnson. We've done a stream about that. Then was Trey Donaldson, which I wouldn't say was a surprise, but of the two next options that were potentially being discussed, it was probably the most surprising. That has had a live stream. We've discussed on that and wishing him good luck. And now we're talking about the third guard, the second true point guard for Auburn basketball in the portal, leaving. So effectively, in terms of these small guards, they all gone at this point. And while I would argue Trey is more of a big guard, still the point stands. The point guards, Katie's a little bit smaller of a guy. They're all gone at this point. So quite a change. The backcourt for Auburn, once again, will rotate. Once again, we'll have a new look and a new face. We don't know who yet, but we do know that it will be very, very different come next season for 2024, 2025. So why is Aden deciding to leave? I think that's the first big question. Very similar, I would assume, not spoken to Aden myself or any family members or friends. You've probably seen reports out there that he has reportedly not been with the program, or at least been around the facilities since everybody arrived back from Spokane and losing in the first round of March Madness. That's usually not a good sign. Not to say that there's anything really to do at the moment once your season's over, but usually you see people hanging around, stuff like that. So if reports are true there, that's not a good sign. It usually tells you there's a little bit of a, maybe not discontent is the right word, but reanalysis of where you're heading and where we're going. So I think the tea leaves were kind of being written very early on this one, which was surprising why Trey was the first one to get in, because a lot of people were under the assumption that if one left, the other would stay. And I would say I also subscribe to that theory, which is why I was shocked that Trey chose to leave first. And then now Aden has chosen to leave as well. You've also got a talented point guard, combo guard, I should say, because Bruce is very adamant that he'll play off the ball a lot too, into Todd Pettiford. Auburn's obviously courting a lot of hot prospects in terms of point guard position. The Furman, I believe, Pegeegs is out there, and maybe an option, others as well. So there's going to be other people coming in to take time, want to play point guard for Auburn as well. So it makes sense, especially if you really didn't like how your time was being split and you didn't have a season maybe that you thought or fans thought you might have. It would make sense that you'd want to give a try somewhere else, especially if you have this option. You can hate the transfer portal all you want, but if you were in their shoes, you probably do the exact same thing. And you might say, well, there's no loyalty anymore. If that's the case, some of the loyalty I'll show someone, I say y'all very generally, to some of our players out there, I'll take their version of loyalty. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. Aden Holloway, let me give you, we'll address some of your comments and questions I see coming in real quick. Let me just give you some information about him just to kind of put it in perspective, who we're losing, what minutes, where his strength was, what his reported strength was, and what we saw a lot initially was his three-point ability. That came on very strong, building upon the hype that we lumped upon this kid, and then it just fell off for whatever reason. I think he was quoted as saying he's never had a stretch like this in his life, and that he felt like it would get better. Bruce expected it to get better too, and it just never really got consistently better. Good games here or there, but that was what he was known for, was his shooting ability, and it just didn't work out, which is what Auburn really could have used from the guards at time. But what are his stats? He played in 35 total games. This is from ESPN. 28.2 minutes per game, 31.8% from the field, 30-point percentage for 3-point shots. Now, a lot of people would kill for that 30 percentage for 3-pointers, but not for someone who's known for that. That's not a good enough stat line for them personally, I would imagine, but for the expectations from fans and coaches, I'm sure as well. Free throw percentage is probably where we're going to really miss him. And at times during the stretch, we could have used a little bit more. Aden Holloway shooting some free throws, 77.4%, very close to that 80% mark I talk about so much. 2.7 assists per game, 0.5 steals per game. He only committed 1.2 personal fouls, turnovers 0.9 per game, and his average points 7.3. So you look at all those stats. You look at where he contributed most in terms of stats consistently throughout. Free throws was definitely a strong point for him. When his shot was on, his 3-point shot was definitely one of the better things that we had with him out there, although it wasn't all that consistent at times. And he had a pretty good rapport with some of his other teammates out there in terms of dishing the ball to him and things like that. So he was very well rounded in his skills. They just didn't all show together at the right time. Also, in terms of giving you a perspective of like when was his high points. If you look on Auburn's website, you can see season highs. I would probably venture to say, based on this and my own recollection, because the height for him was in the non-conference play, the Indiana game in Atlanta was definitely his high point. Points high 24 for that game. He also had 7 field goals made in total during Indiana, and made 5 free throws as well. And if I remember correctly, that one was that one I remember a lot. Played his most minutes against Georgia. He had his most attempts against Baylor. I do remember that. He shot the ball a lot against Baylor. He was very excited to be out on the court for Auburn. 3-point attempts, the most versus LSU. Rebounds, he had 5 against South Carolina. His most assists, Mississippi State, and that was in the SEC tournament. It looks like, if I've got my dates correct on that. Only 1 block was his high, and then 3 steals versus Virginia Tech. So when we look at the story of Aden Holloway in the one season that we can talk about him, obviously only one season of stats, We can talk about, obviously, a inconsistent shooter, but when he was on, he was on. Definitely had a good rapport with some of his teammates in terms of passing the ball and getting the ball to them. Very young, very excitable, very ready to be out there and prove that the hype that we as fans put on him was warranted, but didn't necessarily all work out that way. And definitely non-conference was the best time for him. So what I would do now, let's talk about some of y'all's thoughts and reactions that are watching live. If you're on the replay, obviously we can't address these, but we'll do that because I would imagine a lot of it is going to move also into the realm of what's next for Auburn. What does this mean? So let's talk about some of these things. Devin says, been seeing conversations about how we need bigger guards to win championships. Not sure I buy that. I've seen teams with small guards win championships. Thoughts on that? Well, this is something that I pushed back on a lot and gotten pushed back on a lot before this. And I don't say pity me because of that, but I think a lot of times we buy into these things that are said on social media and it must be true. And then it gets spread by other people. And we don't actually think, is this actually true? Is this what the recipe is? Because let's talk about last year. The big issue was Auburn's guards are too small. Well, Aden's a little bit bigger than Wendell Green. We also had Trade take more of a prominent role as a point guard. And I would say that actually proved its point a little bit. But did it make the overall difference? No. Look at Jared Harper and Bryce Brown. I mean, I forget Bryce's height, but I think he's like 6'1", 6'2" at most. Jared, definitely short. Maybe not as short as Aden, but I mean, as Wendell. But small guards don't necessarily mean that's what's the problem. It just, are your guards giving you what you need to make your team most successful? Their height necessarily doesn't negate them from that. So in terms of answering the question, what does this mean? Maybe we know something maybe this means that they know something we don't, like Peegs might be coming. I think when a decision is made, it means a lot of things. It means that a personal decision has been made outside of those factors. It also could mean that a decision has been made in addition to those factors. I would say the fact that reportedly he has not been around the program, the facilities, I should say, not the program, since we got back, and that's reportedly. That's a sign that he was already mulling his ideas and kind of trying to think through some things and maybe even wait to see what Auburn was going to do. Were they going to bring someone else in to make the playing time? Maybe he would have pulled the trigger a little bit sooner had Trey not made the decision that he made. I'm kind of that opinion. So yes, the Furman guard, who is reportedly out there, Peegs or however you say it, haven't learned it yet, or someone else, just insert whoever it is based on when you're watching this, because that may be a moot point one way or the other by the time you're seeing this. That obviously could factor into this. I would say it's probably a 50-50 chance it had at least a play in on this at this point. Devin says, I can't help but wonder, what if we miss out on the hot prospects the fans are fawning over? Then where do we go from there? Well, as you've learned, Devin, you've been here long enough, fans will sway and all this stuff. The funniest thing is, people scream to get rid of Wendell Green. Aden Holloway is the king, and now they're thankful he's gone. A lot of them, you've seen some of the reactions out there. So everybody thinks the next star, the next hot transfer portal is going to be their savior. Sometimes they are, but sometimes they're not. I think Aden, with more time, would have proven to be well valued in that McDonald's All-American category. And it's sad that he won't be able to fulfill that at Auburn, at least of now. Keep in mind, transfer portal entering means you can leave it as well. Come back out on the side you entered it on, but we'll see. I felt Trey grew more as a freshman than Aden did, but I also got to see Trey play as a sophomore. Do you think Denver will stay and play some point guard? So in terms of talking about what does this decision mean for the position currently, obviously your point guards are gone. You got to have some point guards. Tahad Pettiford can play point guard. Bruce has been adamant that he's going to play combo guard, that he's going to play off the ball a lot. Does that mean Denver plays that? That's something we saw at times when the point guard play wasn't going that great, or there was an injury or a team issue, I believe, at one point where they had to sit out a game. I think it was Trey. I could be wrong. May have been Aden. Either way, that's a possibility. My assumption about it is I would much rather, based on what I saw at Denver, keep him in his current role because he was starting to really flourish in that role. I wouldn't give him more responsibilities right now. That's me. I'm not the coaches, Coach Pearl. I would like to see us bring someone in /2 in that can really fulfill that role and let Tahad play a little bit more. Here's what we do know and what it means. Auburn has officially lost now 5 total spots on their team. The first 2 were the ones that have officially graduated and left. That being Jalen Williams, Lior Berman. Can't come back, which is really, really sad. Some of the fan favorites. Obviously, we talked about KD. Then we talked about Trey. And now we're talking about Aden. So there are 5 spots available for people to come in. 2 of those have been filled. A guard and a forward position. That's Tahad and Jakai. So I would say with Lior's spot, let's just call it Trey's spot has been filled by Tahad. Let's call it, because I think they're going to be very similar. Point guard-esque, but can do more than just point guard. And let's call Jakai fulfilling Jalen's scholarship and slot on the team. So essentially, you need a guard to replace Lior, you need a guard to replace KD, and you need a point guard to replace to replace Aden. If a transfer like Piggs comes in, that one's filled. So that leaves 2 more guards, off the ball guards, that you've got to fill. So Denver can, yes, fill in some of those roles, but you still got to fill those spots overall. There's a player on UConn's roster that picked UConn over Auburn. He's from Covington, Georgia. What could have been, maybe. But if I'll use my favorite phrase: if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. Don't know where I got that from, but there's some truth in that, even though it's not Christmas time right now. So yeah, so that's what it means. Let me address this part of it. I know there was some conversation early in the chat about it. And this is me discussing something as of what I know at this moment. I've been on a live stream with you guys now for almost 20 minutes. Things could have changed in that 20 minutes, though I figured y'all would have told me this by now. Obviously, right now, we are dealing with not just transfer portal chaos at the end of a season, but coaching carousel progress, which is really interesting this year. With Calipari leaving, the just craziness has ensued, which means a lot of people have interest / mutual interest in a job at Kentucky. A lot of people are associating rumors swirling that Bruce A wants it, B they want him, C they both have interest. This being a sign associated with that. I don't really buy that right now as a major factor in any rumors and legitimacy of them, because Aden's been supposedly on the not chopping block, but has distanced himself from the facilities and program since they arrived back. To me, that just doesn't line up with what I know currently. Is this a sign that Bruce is leaving at this moment? I would probably still disagree with that when we're talking about in the context of the Aden Holloway decision. Would still disagree with that at this point. I remember when Castle was projected to come to Auburn. Still not over it. Is Castle's the one from UConn? Is that who we're talking about? Obviously, yes. But here's the thing. If he had arrived here, you never know. It may not have worked out here either. I would say, I don't know that this is a fair comparison because they don't fit into the same mold of player, because one was a forward, one is a point guard. But this one feels a lot like Jahan Traore to me. And I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way. I just mean in terms of the hype that was surrounding that person coming in and it just not materializing over the course of the season, at least the way the fans had built that up. And I think that's a fair assessment given the differences in position and style and what they do as a player, and who they had to play behind and things like that. But this is a very Jahan Traore type of feel situation to me. Same with Chance Westry. Maybe that's also very similar. Although I would say the Chance Westry thing was more of a shock than this one. I even warned, and I think we talked about this when Chance left last year. Do not put the hype on this Aden kid that y'all put on Chance before we see what he can do. And he didn't help himself with how good he started, right? But I hope, and I hope those of you that watch our content here will start to subscribe to what I've been trying to preach and tell to you. We as fans do way too much harm to these kids by putting expectations on them. Sometimes they don't even hear it. I highly doubt that. But we do much harm in terms of our mentality, our expectations, and then disappointments when they don't live up to those. So just be careful. So when the next person comes in, just be excited, be hopeful, wait and see what happens over the course of a not just non-conference play, but SEC as well, and kind of wait to see the bigger picture before we start saying this kid is the real deal. But there you go. So we have talked about a lot in this subject. I can dive into a little bit more if you'd like, but if you have comments, questions, topics about Aden Holloway specific, his time here, statistics, the fallout, what it means for the program, put them in the chat right now. Let me remind you what's coming up. As I addressed at the beginning of the stream, if you came here hoping we'd say a little bit something about Auburn and Nike, well, have no fear. We've already done that. Check out that live stream. But tomorrow, don't miss it. We are talking with Clint Richardson of the Auburn Uniform Database, who is the guy you want to be following. He's been preparing for this day since he was born. Probably 7 p.m. Eastern time. I will say that again, 7 p.m. Eastern time, just before our live show. We'll do a live stream before our normal live show. We will do a stream conversation with him strictly about that. We'll take questions and answers. And as I just addressed, we will have a call-in show right after that, where I'm sure that conversation will continue, but it'll be more focused on you guys, what you want to talk about, and we could bounce around to a bunch of different things. So join us tomorrow. Is going to be a busy and fun night. Be part of the conversation. So as you're thinking, if you have any other further comments, questions, derogatory rebuttals, let me round out our conversation. The news is that Aden Holloway has left the program reportedly. I have not seen a personal response from him on that, but sometimes that doesn't happen. There's enough out there to prove that it is true. Kind of goes along with what some of the speculation reports were, that he had separated himself a little bit since returning back. And the timeline kind of makes you wonder, did the Trey situation make this delayed a little bit? Decisions coming about other guards, all of that to be said. There was a lot that went into this decision, and it'll be interesting to see what this decision means for the program, who will replace him, and the other departures from Auburn, either transfer portal or graduation, what the team will look like, what the guard play will be, what the point guard position will look like come next year. But I want to do thank Aden for his time as a Tiger. Really appreciated what he did, and was really hopeful and excited to watch how he would develop at Auburn. Sad we will not get to watch that. But life goes on. The transfer portal continues to wheel around, and we'll see how Auburn can maximize opportunities even in a subtraction right now. Thank you all for tuning in to this impromptu live stream. Hopefully this is the last one for the day. But as always, stay subscribed, stay tuned, and keep up with us across all social media. Until I talk to you again, thanks for hanging out, and War Eagle.